Psalm 52. God uproots every wicked root trying to destroy your peace. There are moments in life when the attacks against your peace do not come in the form of visible enemies, but through roots, subtle, invisible, and buried deep within the soil of your circumstances. These roots may represent the lies spoken against you, the envy of those who cannot stand your light, the secret plots that form behind closed doors, or even the toxic emotions that try to grow in your heart because of prolonged pain. Psalm 52 was written in a time of betrayal, deceit, and wicked ambition. It carries within its words a powerful revelation. God himself is the one who uproots every wicked root that dares to rise against his chosen. When David penned these verses, he was being hunted by Saul and betrayed by Doeg the Edomite, a man who had revealed his hiding place and caused the death of innocent priests. In that darkness, David saw how deceit had been planted in the soil of human hearts and how wickedness had been nourished by pride. Yet he also understood that God is not passive when evil tries to destroy peace. The Lord does not simply watch as the enemy sows destruction. He intervenes, uproots, exposes, and replaces. This psalm teaches that every evil root, whether planted by others or formed within you through bitterness, will not stand before divine justice. God will tear it from the ground so that it will never grow again. It is a message for those who have suffered in silence, for those whose names were tarnished, for those who have seen their peace shaken by hidden schemes. Through this reflection, you will understand that your peace is not fragile. It is protected. You will see that God is still in the business of uncovering hidden roots, cleansing your soil, and planting righteousness where corruption tried to grow. Let us journey through the depths of Psalm 52 and see how God, with his mighty hand, tears down every wicked plan, exposes every false tongue, and restores your life to the serenity that only his presence can provide. The hidden nature of wicked roots. What tries to destroy you often grows in silence. Evil rarely begins with thunder. It begins quietly, like a root that burrows beneath the surface. It hides, strengthens, and spreads before it shows its first visible leaf. The story behind Psalm 52 begins with a man whose actions were poisoned by jealousy and ambition. Doeg, the Edomite, witnessed David receiving help from the priest Ahimelech and chose to report it to Saul, twisting the truth for his own benefit. What started as a simple report became the root of mass destruction, the slaughter of the priests of Nob. In the spiritual realm, this represents how wicked roots begin. They form through small decisions made in the dark. Words of slander whispered in envy, schemes plotted in pride, hatred that grows unchecked. The most dangerous attacks are not always those you see. They are the invisible ones that spread underground, seeking to destabilize your peace without warning. The enemy often plants roots through relationships, circumstances, or internal battles. Sometimes it's through a person who carries resentment against you, or through a situation that continually drains your faith. These roots are spiritual. They can be lies that others believe about you, manipulations meant to confuse, or patterns of fear and doubt that you unknowingly allow to grow inside you. But God sees what is buried. Before a root can produce fruit, it must first grow unseen, yet nothing is hidden from his sight. He observes the seeds of deceit long before they manifest, and he waits for the right time to expose them. There are seasons when you may not understand why peace feels fragile, why anxiety grows even when everything seems fine, or why certain people suddenly turn against you. In those moments, know this: there are spiritual roots at work. They are not always yours. Sometimes they belong to others who have allowed darkness to use them as instruments. God, however, is the perfect gardener. The soil of your life belongs to him. No wicked seed can grow where his presence dwells. He will not allow roots of hatred or betrayal to remain. Through trials, he shakes the soil, forcing the roots to the surface so that they can be seen and removed. David experienced this firsthand. He had done nothing wrong, yet he was accused, hunted, and betrayed. Still, he did not take vengeance into his own hands. He trusted that God would deal with the roots. Psalm 52:5 says, "God will likewise destroy you forever. He will take you away and pluck you out of your dwelling place and uproot you from the land of the living." This is divine justice in action, not human revenge, but holy uprooting. It is God declaring that no wickedness will stay planted in the soil of his chosen one's destiny. To understand this deeply, imagine a garden filled with flowers of peace, faith, and joy. Then imagine how one hidden root of bitterness could begin to spread, threatening to choke everything beautiful. God does not prune evil. He pulls it out entirely. His goal is not temporary relief, but total restoration. When you go through a shaking, a confrontation, or a sudden exposure of truth, it is often God's way of cleansing your soil. He is removing what would have destroyed you later. Every painful revelation, every sudden separation, and every moment of uncomfortable truth is not chaos. It is the sound of roots being torn out by divine hands. So if you have lost something recently, a relationship, an opportunity, a connection, do not be quick to mourn. Ask instead, was that root good? Or was it feeding on my peace? Because sometimes the very thing that caused you pain was actually a root God refused to let remain. In time, the soil of your life becomes healthier, your mind quieter, your spirit freer. The garden of your peace begins to flourish again, because every wicked root that once tried to grow has been pulled out by the hand of the Almighty. Therefore, trust the process of divine uprooting. Do not resist it, and do not fear it. When God removes, he also replants. What he takes away through exposure, he replaces with strength and restoration. Your peace is sacred. The Lord guards it with fire. Every root that threatens it, whether visible or unseen, will be torn out, and you will remain like a tree planted by streams of living water. If you are ready to see God expose and remove every hidden root trying to destroy your peace, open your heart to him now. Let him cleanse your soil. Before moving to the next revelation, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so that every message that strengthens your spirit finds you in time. God is speaking through his word, and each teaching is a step toward complete spiritual freedom. Subscribe, stay close, and let his truth uproot every hidden lie against your peace. The God who sees beneath the surface how divine justice works in hidden realms. When the psalmist wrote about the downfall of the wicked in Psalm 52, he was not describing a public act of judgment that everyone could see immediately. He was describing something deeper, something that takes place long before the world witnesses it. God's justice does not always begin in the open. It begins beneath the surface, in the places no human eye can reach. Just as roots are hidden beneath the soil, so too are the workings of divine justice. God sees what man cannot. He observes motives, hidden intentions, and secret words that were never spoken aloud, but still carried power in the spirit. There is a truth we must understand. God does not merely judge actions, he judges roots. He looks beyond behavior to what gave birth to that behavior. He does not only destroy the fruit of wickedness, but the very root that produced it. This is why so often, before anything changes in the visible world, he begins dealing with the invisible. He goes beneath the surface of your situation and begins to tear apart spiritual roots that no one else can see. Think of David's life during the time of Psalm 52. From an outside perspective, it appeared as though Saul's kingdom was unshakable. His throne stood firm, his soldiers obeyed him, and David was the fugitive running for his life. Yet in the unseen realm, something entirely different was happening. God was pulling at the roots of Saul's authority, dismantling the power that sustained his rebellion, and preparing the soil for David's rise. To human eyes, the wicked seemed to prosper, but in the eyes of heaven, they were already uprooted. The same principle applies to you. When you are walking in integrity, and yet it feels like evil continues to thrive around you, it does not mean that God is silent. It means his hand is working underground. He is examining every hidden connection, every spiritual tie, every false alliance that has taken root around you. He sees the poisonous roots of jealousy that others have planted, the unseen manipulations woven against you, and even the roots of fear or self-doubt that have tried to grow in your own heart. He does not always strike immediately, because uprooting is a process. If he pulled everything at once, it could break the soil of your life. So in his mercy, he loosens the ground gradually, exposing one root at a time until the entire system of wickedness collapses. Divine justice, therefore, is not delayed. It is deliberate. God knows the timing of every exposure. When you feel like the wicked are winning, remember this: they are growing in shallow soil. Their success is temporary because the foundation beneath them is rotting. Psalm 37:35-36 echoes this reality. I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree. Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. That is what happens when God removes the root. The entire tree vanishes as if it had never existed. The problem for many believers is that they focus only on the visible part of the tree. They look at the branches of gossip, the fruit of slander, the leaves of betrayal, and they despair. But God never begins his work from the top. He always starts from beneath. You may not see his hand moving, but the shaking has already begun underground. The moment you prayed for deliverance, he began disturbing the soil. Every wicked spirit that used to find rest there now trembles because its foundation is being destroyed. God's justice is not revenge. It is restoration. It is not fueled by emotion, but by divine order. He removes wicked roots, not to satisfy anger, but to preserve peace. When the Lord uproots evil, it is to make room for righteousness to grow. The soil of your life is sacred to him because it carries his purpose. He will not allow anything foreign to pollute it. Sometimes he reveals the root to you through confrontation. Someone exposes their true nature, a secret is revealed, a mask falls. Other times he reveals it through silence, through a distance that grows between you and what once felt familiar. When God begins to isolate you, it is often because he is removing roots of dependence that were never meant to sustain you. This is what David experienced. When Doeg betrayed him, it was painful beyond words. The betrayal caused innocent blood to be spilled. But that very moment of loss became the soil for revelation. David realized that human alliances could not protect him, only God could. The betrayal became the divine tool that exposed the wicked root. Had Doeg remained hidden, had Saul continued unchecked, the rot in Israel's spiritual foundation would have gone unnoticed. But through exposure came judgment, and through judgment came justice. In your life, there will be moments when God exposes what was hidden, and you will feel the sting of it. You may cry, Lord, why did you let me see this? But the truth is that he showed you not to destroy your peace, but to preserve it. Hidden roots are dangerous because they continue to grow in silence. The revelation of truth is painful but necessary. It brings healing. Sometimes what God is uprooting is not even external. It is internal. He sees the small roots of bitterness that began to form after betrayal. He sees the seeds of pride that started to grow after success. He sees the silent fear that tries to take hold after disappointment. These too must be uprooted, because if he leaves them, they will eventually choke your spiritual life. So when God begins to disturb your soil, thank him. When he removes people, thank him. When he silences opportunities, thank him. You do not always know what he is protecting you from. You cannot see what he saw, nor can you understand the full danger that was beneath the surface. Every divine no, every closed door, every uncomfortable ending is part of his justice. It is him removing what you didn't realize was threatening your peace. Now let's look deeper at how divine justice operates in secret. The Bible reveals that the Lord searches the hearts and tests the minds. Jeremiah 17:10. That means he looks for motives, not appearances. Many times, what we call injustice is simply God exposing what was already unjust. People may rise in power for a while, but their roots betray them. If their success is built on lies, greed, or manipulation, it cannot last. God will eventually blow upon it, and the tree will wither. God's justice is precise. He never cuts too early, nor does he strike too late. He waits until the root system is fully revealed, because his goal is to remove not just one branch of wickedness, but the entire network of it. If he destroyed the fruit while leaving the root, evil would simply grow again. That is why divine judgment sometimes seems slow, but it is perfect. It ensures that the evil cannot return. In nature, when a root is deep, a gardener cannot simply pull it with bare hands. He must dig around it, loosen the soil, and often wait for rain to soften the ground. Likewise, God uses situations, seasons of pressure, conviction, and revelation to prepare the soil for uprooting. The rain of the Spirit comes to soften hearts, the shaking comes to loosen attachments, and then he pulls. By the time he does, there is no resistance. The wicked root has lost its grip. When this process is happening, it often feels like loss or chaos. You might wonder why certain things are crumbling around you, why certain people are leaving, why long-standing structures are collapsing. But look beneath the surface. The fall of a false foundation is a sign that divine justice is at work. The peace you prayed for is being restored, not by addition, but by removal. God does not always bless by giving. Sometimes he blesses by taking away. You must also understand that peace cannot coexist with deceit. When God promises to give you peace, he must first remove everything that disturbs it. Psalm 52 reveals this through contrast. On one side stands the boastful man who trusts in the abundance of his riches and strengthens himself in wickedness. On the other side stands the righteous who trust in the mercy of God forever. The first man's roots are shallow, nourished by pride. The second's roots are deep, grounded in faith. When God uproots the wicked, he also strengthens the righteous. He does not simply remove evil, he multiplies good. In your own journey, this means that when the wicked are exposed, you will be elevated. When false roots are torn out, your real foundation will be revealed. You will finally see what God was building while he seemed silent. The peace that follows divine justice is different. It is not fragile, not circumstantial, but unshakable. It is the peace that comes when there is no longer anything hidden beneath the surface, when everything false has been uprooted. This process is sacred. It must be embraced, not resisted. Many lose their peace because they fight God's hand of uprooting. They try to hold on to what he is trying to remove, but the sooner you release it, the sooner your peace will return. Trust that his vision reaches further than yours. He knows the true depth of every root, and he knows which ones must go. Every wicked root that has ever tried to destroy your peace, every slander spoken, every trap laid, every secret plot designed to weaken you will meet the same end that David described. God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. It is not your job to fight them. It is your job to remain rooted in him. The deeper you go into his presence, the less the enemy can touch you. Peace does not come from perfect surroundings. It comes from perfect trust. You can live surrounded by storms and still rest because your roots are in the right soil. The wicked, on the other hand, may appear strong, but have no foundation. The wind of God's justice is enough to bring them down. If you are in a season where God seems to be digging deep in your life, let Him. He is not destroying you. He is preparing you. The same way He prepared David for the throne by allowing betrayal to reveal hearts. He is preparing you for elevation by allowing exposure to cleanse your surroundings. The God who sees beneath the surface is the same God who restores what was broken. After every uprooting, He plants something new. Where the root of deceit once grew, He will plant truth. Where the root of fear once spread, He will plant faith. Where the root of bitterness once poisoned, He will plant love. And where the root of anxiety once lived, He will plant peace that surpasses all understanding. Do not fear the silence of God. It is the sound of roots breaking. Do not mourn over what He removes. It is His way of giving you rest. What He uproots, He replaces. What He removes, He redeems. So let your heart rest in the assurance that your peace is not in danger. It is being defended. Every wicked root trying to destroy it is being exposed and torn apart, piece by piece, until nothing remains. Soon, the soil of your life will be clean again, and you will see new growth, not from human effort, but from divine planting. This is the power of Psalm 52. God Himself is your gardener, your protector, and your peace. If this message has spoken to you, take a moment now to subscribe to the channel. Each word shared here is meant to strengthen your spirit and remind you that God is still working, even when you cannot see it. Stay connected and let His truth continue to uproot everything that threatens your peace. The uprooting process. When God removes to restore. There is a moment in every believer's life when peace seems to vanish, when everything that once felt secure begins to crumble, and when silence feels heavier than prayer. It is in this moment that many cry out, "Lord, why are you allowing this to happen?" But what feels like destruction is often divine gardening. God is not ignoring you. He is uprooting. Every trial that seems unbearable, every betrayal that cuts deeply, every delay that tests your patience is part of His deliberate process to cleanse the soil of your soul. The same hand that plants blessings is the hand that removes the roots that threaten them. When God begins the process of uprooting, it rarely looks gentle. The ground shakes, the familiar becomes foreign, and what once appeared strong suddenly collapses. Yet in the kingdom of God, this shaking is not a sign of chaos, but of purification. He does not allow your life to remain planted with what poisons your peace. He tears out every root that pretends to belong to Him, but was planted by the enemy. You might lose people, opportunities, or dreams during this season, but none of it is random. What He removes is always something that, if left to grow, would eventually choke your purpose. David experienced this when he fled from Saul. In the natural, it appeared as if he was losing everything: his position, his reputation, his safety, and his peace. But in the spiritual realm, God was uprooting everything that was false. False loyalty, false security, false dependence. Saul's pursuit forced David into hiding, but it also forced him into the arms of God. He had to rely on the presence of the Lord more than the favor of men. Through pain, David learned that peace is not found in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of truth. Uprooting, then, is a divine confrontation between what is false and what is real. God's light exposes what has been buried. His Spirit begins to search the soil of your life, showing you what cannot remain. This may happen through unexpected exposure. Someone's true intentions come to light, a partnership collapses, or a hidden sin surfaces. It may also happen through divine silence. God simply withdraws His peace from an area of your life to make you aware that something unhealthy has taken root. When you can no longer rest in what once comforted you, it is a sign that the uprooting has begun. Every time God removes, He intends to restore. But before He can plant new blessings, He must clear the ground. Imagine a field overtaken by weeds. The farmer cannot sow new seeds until he first pulls out the old. This process is exhausting, dirty, and time-consuming. It involves digging deep, exposing what was hidden, and pulling until the root gives way. Sometimes the root resists. It clings to the soil, unwilling to let go. In the same way, certain attachments in your life resist divine removal. You hold on to people, habits, and memories that God is trying to extract. The more you hold, the more painful the process becomes. Yet God is patient. He will continue to pull until the soil is free. There are roots that grow through trauma, fear, self-doubt, guilt. They twist themselves around your identity, whispering lies about who you are. You begin to believe you are unworthy of peace, undeserving of healing. But these are not truths. They are roots of deception. When God uproots them, He replaces them with truth. He reminds you that you are His creation, planted by His hand and sustained by His Spirit. The lies that have lived beneath the surface begin to lose their power the moment His light reaches them. Sometimes uprooting happens through loss. You may lose something you prayed for, something you cherished. It feels unfair, even cruel. But if you could see what God saw, the future that the root would have created, you would thank Him for the removal. A relationship that God ends may have looked loving on the surface, but was draining your spirit underneath. A job you lose may have seemed secure, but was keeping you far from your purpose. Every divine removal carries hidden mercy. What you perceive as rejection is often protection. What feels like loss is preparation for restoration. When God uproots wickedness, He doesn't stop halfway. He doesn't trim the leaves of evil or cut its branches. He tears out the whole system. That's why sometimes, when He removes one thing, several other things collapse with it. A friendship ends. Then your social circle changes. Then a habit disappears. Then your priorities shift. It feels like your whole life is being rearranged, and it is. Because roots never grow alone. They intertwine. When He pulls one out, others come with it. David's life after Doeg's betrayal followed this pattern. The exposure of evil didn't just eliminate one man's deceit. It began a series of divine events that changed the entire direction of David's destiny. What started as an act of wickedness ended as an act of deliverance. The same sword that the enemy used against David became the instrument of his elevation. That is how God works. He takes what the enemy plants for destruction and transforms it into the soil of promotion. The uprooting process also requires patience. You cannot rush divine timing. A tree that has been growing for years cannot be removed in a day. The deeper the root, the longer the process. If something in your life has had power over you for a long time, an addiction, a fear, an unhealthy pattern, it will take time for God to fully remove it. But do not mistake time for absence. Every prayer you pray, every act of surrender, every moment you choose faith over fear is another tug at that root. There are moments in uprooting when you will feel empty. The soil of your life looks barren. Nothing seems to grow. You look around and see no signs of new life, only the scars of what was removed. But that emptiness is sacred. It is the space where new seeds will soon be planted. God never leaves the ground empty for long. The same hand that removed the wicked root will soon plant righteousness in its place. One of the most profound truths of Psalm 52 is that God's justice is not only retributive, but restorative. When He tears out evil, He restores peace. When He exposes deceit, He strengthens truth. When He removes betrayal, He plants loyalty. The goal of uprooting is not destruction, but transformation. You are not being punished, you are being purified. Every trial that feels unbearable is shaping the ground of your heart to receive something greater. The pain of uprooting comes from the tearing, the separation between what was false and what is true. But when the pain subsides, peace follows. The ground feels lighter. The air seems clearer. Suddenly you realize that what was removed was not holding you together, it was holding you back. The peace that returns after divine uprooting is different. It is not fragile. It does not depend on circumstances or people. It flows from within because its roots are now in God. There is another layer to this process, one that involves forgiveness. Many believers pray for God to remove wicked roots from their lives, but refuse to release the bitterness tied to them. Yet you cannot receive divine restoration while holding on to resentment. Forgiveness is the final act of uprooting. When you forgive, you pull out the last strand of evil's power over you. The soil of your spirit becomes free again. Forgiveness is not about pretending that what happened was right. It is about acknowledging that you will no longer let it poison your peace. It is about trusting that God's justice is enough. David never sought revenge against Doeg or Saul. He let God handle them. His peace was not in vengeance but in faith. That same principle applies to you. Let God be the one who deals with those who hurt you. Your task is to stay rooted in His love. As the uprooting continues, you may notice that your desires begin to change. Things that once excited you no longer hold the same appeal. Conversations that once felt natural now drain you. You are being transformed. The removal of old roots makes room for divine desires. God begins to align your heart with His will. What you once chased, you now release. What you once feared, you now face with courage. Peace begins to flow, not from what you have, but from who you are becoming. This transformation also affects how you see others. When you've gone through divine uprooting, you recognize it in others. You begin to see through appearances. You discern false peace, the kind that hides behind distractions, and you yearn for deeper truth. God gives you new eyes, spiritual eyes, to see not just what people say, but what spirit they carry. This discernment is not for judgment, but for protection. You learn to guard your peace as sacred ground. God is meticulous. He knows how to uproot without destroying. In your pain, you might think He has taken too much, but when the restoration comes, you will realize He took only what could not stay. He never removes more than necessary. He removes exactly enough to protect your destiny. And then, as time passes, you will begin to see new roots forming, roots of faith, hope, patience, and joy. They will grow deep because the soil has been purified. You will notice that your reactions to trials have changed. Where you once panicked, now you pray. Where you once sought revenge, now you rest. Where you once feared loss, now you trust that removal is part of His mercy. That is the evidence of divine restoration, when your peace no longer depends on protection from pain, but on presence within it. There will come a day when you look back and see how every shaking had purpose, how every ending was a beginning, and how every root that was torn out made space for new growth. You will thank God for what He removed because you will see what He replaced it with. This is what it means to live Psalm 52, not just to witness God's justice, but to experience His restoration. He is not only the God who uproots evil, but the God who replants righteousness. So if you are in the midst of divine uprooting right now, take heart. You are not being destroyed, you are being renewed. The soil of your life is being prepared for something greater than what was lost. Peace is returning, stronger than before. Do not fear the pain of removal. Embrace it. Trust the process. God's hand is firm but gentle. He knows exactly where to pull, exactly what to take, and exactly when to stop. When He is done, nothing harmful will remain. Every wicked root that tried to destroy your peace will be gone, and what will rise in its place will be the purest peace you have ever known. Peace that flows from a heart fully surrendered to Him. You will know the process is complete when silence no longer feels empty but full of His presence, full of His purpose, full of His promise. The ground of your spirit will no longer tremble under hidden roots. It will stand firm, ready for divine growth. And as your new roots deepen, you will realize that what once caused you fear now strengthens your faith. You will become unshakable, not because the storms stopped coming, but because your roots are now anchored in the God who cannot be moved. Before continuing to the next revelation, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Stay close to the Word, because every message that follows builds on this truth, that God removes to restore, uproots to heal, and shakes to establish peace that cannot be taken away. Subscribe now and let His presence continue to shape the soil of your soul. The restoration of peace, when God plants what the enemy tried to destroy. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict, it is the presence of divine order. When God uproots the wicked roots that tried to destroy your peace, He does not leave your soul barren. He begins a new work, one that transforms the ground of your life into a garden of righteousness, faith, and serenity. This process of restoration is one of the most beautiful expressions of His love. What the enemy used to bring turmoil becomes the very foundation on which God builds strength. What was once poisoned soil becomes holy ground. After David endured betrayal, fear, and loss, Psalm 52 closes with a profound declaration of confidence. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the mercy of God forever and ever. This verse is not the voice of a man still trembling from attack, but of one who has been restored. David understood that peace is not recovered through vengeance, but through renewal. He didn't just survive the uprooting, he flourished after it. When God restores peace, He doesn't simply return you to your previous condition. He elevates you. He plants new roots, spiritual virtues that could never have grown in the old soil. Where there was fear, He plants faith. Where there was resentment, He plants forgiveness. Where there was confusion, He plants discernment. These new roots grow deeper than the old ones ever did, because they are nourished by grace, not by human effort. The restoration of peace begins within, not around you. Many pray for external calm while their hearts remain in turmoil. But divine peace starts as a seed in your soul. It grows quietly, watered by prayer, strengthened by trust, and guarded by gratitude. You may still face storms, but they no longer shake you, because the storm can no longer reach your roots. When the Lord restores, He also redefines. He changes how you see what happened. You begin to realize that every loss carried purpose. Every tear watered your future. Every shaking prepared the soil for greater growth. The peace that follows restoration carries wisdom, a calm that cannot be taken away because it is built on understanding. You begin to thank God not just for what He gave, but also for what He took. You realize that some removals were blessings in disguise, some silences were answers, and some delays were protection. The olive tree that David mentions in Psalm 52 is symbolic. Olive trees thrive in rocky soil. Their roots go deep in search of hidden water. They represent endurance, patience, and peace that withstands harsh conditions. When David said he was like a green olive tree in the house of God, he was declaring that his peace was not circumstantial. It was rooted in presence, the presence of God. His enemies could destroy his comfort, but not his connection. When God restores peace in your life, He doesn't promise a life free from battles, but a spirit that remains unbroken through them. You will still walk among thorns, but they will no longer pierce your heart. The same situations that once disturbed your peace will now strengthen it. You will speak gently where you once shouted, stand firm where you once trembled, and rest where you once panicked. This is the evidence that your peace is divine, not human. Restoration also involves realignment. God begins to reposition you emotionally, spiritually, sometimes even geographically. He places you in environments that nourish your new growth. People who drained you are replaced with those who water your soul. Opportunities that once seemed impossible begin to appear. The flow of divine favor returns, not as a reward for endurance, but as the natural result of clean soil. In this phase, your prayer life changes. Before, your prayers were cries for rescue. Now, they become songs of gratitude. You no longer pray from desperation, but from intimacy. You find yourself less focused on what you want and more focused on who God is. That is the secret of unshakable peace. It grows in hearts that value presence more than possessions. As you walk in this renewed peace, you begin to notice that the same Spirit that restored you now uses you to restore others. People drawn to your life sense the stability that can only come from God. They find comfort in your calm, strength in your stillness, and hope in your resilience. You become living proof that peace is not lost forever, that what the enemy uprooted, God can replant with abundance. Sometimes the most powerful ministry you will ever have is not what you preach, but how you live after being broken. When others see that you did not lose your peace despite betrayal, disappointment, or suffering, they see the reflection of God's restoration in you. You become like a tree whose roots testify silently. God was here. But restoration is not instantaneous. It unfolds like the growth of a tree, gradually, invisibly, faithfully. Each day you choose to trust instead of worry, forgive instead of resent, rest instead of strive. You are growing. Peace matures over time. It is strengthened by repetition, by learning to respond differently to the same tests. God allows small storms to come your way, not to destroy your new growth, but to deepen it. If you look at an olive tree's trunk, you will see scars, twists, and rough textures. These marks tell stories of wind, drought, and time, yet the tree still stands, full of fruit and beauty. Likewise, your scars do not diminish your peace, they validate it. Every wound healed by God becomes a channel for grace. You may carry reminders of the past, but they no longer define you. They testify to divine faithfulness. The peace that God restores is guarded by His presence. That means you must remain near Him. The same way a tree needs light to survive, you need His word to maintain your peace. The more time you spend in His presence, the deeper your roots go. The more you meditate on His truth, the less the enemy can shake you. Your peace becomes not an emotion, but an atmosphere. Restoration also reawakens purpose. When the roots of wickedness were in your life, they drained your energy, distorted your focus, and robbed your time. But now that they are gone, you can hear God's voice again. You begin to see your calling with clarity. New doors open because your spirit is aligned. You are no longer distracted by battles that do not belong to you. You can finally walk freely in the direction of destiny. David's story reminds us that restoration is never partial. God does not heal halfway. When He restores, He rebuilds completely. He not only returns peace, but multiplies it. After every storm, He leaves a residue of strength. After every battle, He leaves a testimony. And after every uprooting, He leaves the fragrance of renewal. The restored believer is dangerous to darkness because they no longer fear loss. Once you have lived through divine removal and survived, you understand that everything God takes, He replaces with something better. You no longer cling to temporary things. You trust His pruning because you know His planting. You stop asking why and start saying thank you. That shift in attitude is the true sign of restoration. The peace that God gives cannot be stolen because it does not depend on possessions, people, or positions. It flows from His Spirit, not from circumstances. Jesus said, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives." The world's peace requires control. God's peace requires surrender. When you stop trying to manage every outcome and instead rest in divine timing, you open yourself to the kind of peace that surpasses understanding. The restored believer lives differently. They speak slower, listen deeper, love freer, and walk lighter. They no longer carry the weight of proving themselves. They know who they are and who their God is. Their confidence comes not from perfection, but from presence. This is the fruit of a restored soul. Quiet strength. When God plants new roots, He also gives you new discernment. You begin to recognize early when something does not belong in your soil. You sense when conversations carry spiritual toxins, when opportunities come with hidden motives, when relationships are draining your peace. Instead of tolerating them, you now guard your ground. You become selective, not out of pride, but out of reverence for what God has rebuilt in you. The peace of restoration is also contagious. When others see your calm in chaos, they will ask how you maintain it. That's when you point upward. You tell them about the gardener who cleansed your soil, about the God who uprooted every wicked root, and about the Spirit who planted peace in its place. Your life becomes a living psalm, a song of deliverance and renewal. One of the greatest lessons in divine restoration is that God wastes nothing. Every tear, every trial, every waiting season becomes fertilizer for your future. The very pain that once broke you becomes the nourishment for your new strength. The deeper the suffering, the richer the soil. That's why those who have been through great shaking often carry great peace. They have seen what remains when everything else is gone. As you walk in your restored peace, remember this: it must be maintained. Uprooted ground must be tended. The enemy will attempt to sow new seeds of distraction, doubt, and fear. Guard your soil with prayer. Water it with worship. Fertilize it with the word. Surround it with community that speaks life, not poison. Peace is a garden. It must be cultivated daily. When God restores, He does not only bless you, He uses you to bless others. Your restored peace becomes shelter for those still trembling. Your testimony becomes the light that guides others out of their own darkness. What once was your pain becomes your ministry. This is the mystery of Psalm 52, that after all the uprooting, all the shaking, and all the loss, David could still say, "I trust in the mercy of God forever." Mercy became his root, trust became his trunk, and peace became his fruit. The same will happen for you. The soil of your soul will bear fruit again, fruit that no storm can destroy because it was planted by divine hands. So, if you are in the stage of restoration, be patient. The growth may be slow, but it is sacred. The peace may begin as a whisper, but it will soon become a river. Do not rush the process. Let God's peace take deep root until nothing can move it. The wicked root is gone, the righteous root is growing, the soil has been sanctified, the ground has been redeemed. Your story will not end in turmoil. It will end in testimony. God is faithful to finish what He begins. The same hand that uprooted every evil root will ensure that your new growth bears fruit in abundance. Peace will not be temporary this time. It will be eternal, anchored in His presence, guarded by His promise, and sealed by His love. If this message has brought you understanding and renewed your hope, take a moment now to subscribe to the channel. Each word shared here is part of your restoration journey. Stay connected because God is still speaking, and His next word will take you even deeper into the peace that no wicked root can destroy. The unshakable peace, living beyond the reach of wicked roots. There comes a point after the uprooting, after the restoration, when peace ceases to be something you hope for and becomes something you live in. It is no longer a fragile emotion you try to protect, but a spiritual atmosphere that protects you. This is the ultimate purpose of Psalm 52. Not just to show that God destroys the roots of evil, but to reveal that He establishes His people in a peace so deep that no wicked power can touch it. This kind of peace is not the product of circumstance. It is the fruit of divine habitation. It comes when your heart, once disturbed by storms and betrayal, now beats in rhythm with the eternal calm of God's presence. It is the peace that cannot be explained, only experienced. David's life offers us a vivid picture of this transformation. When he was hiding from Saul, his peace was tested on every side. He lived in caves, surrounded by enemies, hunted like prey. Yet even there, he wrote songs of worship. How can a man sing while running for his life? Because his peace no longer depended on safety. It depended on surrender. When your soul has truly been uprooted from the world's expectations, fear loses its grip. You realize that peace is not the absence of danger, but the presence of trust. David's secret was not his strength, it was his perspective. He saw beyond the visible battle and into the invisible sovereignty of God. That is the secret of unshakable peace. The journey to that peace often begins with pain. You cannot reach it without first going through the process of exposure, pruning, and restoration. Each season of loss carves space for something greater. The peace that endures is forged in fire, not the fire of destruction, but the fire of purification. God allows certain storms not to break you, but to burn away the illusion that peace depends on people or outcomes. Every disappointment becomes a chisel, shaping your soul to fit perfectly into the divine plan. To live in unshakable peace, you must learn to dwell, not visit, the presence of God. Many believers experience moments of peace when they pray, but lose it the moment they step into the noise of life. That is because they treat peace as an emotion to be recaptured rather than a home to be lived in. The olive tree in Psalm 52 thrives not because it is occasionally watered, but because its roots are permanently in the house of God. That means consistency, staying connected even when you don't feel inspired, worshipping even when you don't understand, trusting even when you can't see. The peace that remains is sustained by daily surrender. The unshakable believer understands that peace is not passive, it is powerful. It is not weakness, it is warfare. Every time you refuse to be provoked, you disarm the enemy. Every time you respond with faith instead of fear, you break his hold. The enemy cannot operate in peace because his nature is chaos. When you remain calm, you remove his access. The greatest victory you can win against darkness is not shouting louder. It is staying still in faith while storms rage. That silence terrifies hell because it reveals that your roots are untouchable. But peace does not grow in isolation. It must be guarded intentionally. After God uproots the wicked roots, the enemy will attempt to plant new ones: doubt, distraction, offense, and pride. He knows he cannot uproot you directly, so he tries to plant within you what will do it slowly. This is why Jesus warned his disciples to watch and pray. The soil of your soul must be tended daily. Prayer is not merely a request, it is a safeguard. Every time you pray, you sweep the soil, remove the seeds of anxiety, and reinforce the roots of trust. The peace of God acts like a fence around your heart, keeping the world's poison from seeping in. You will also find that peace grows stronger when it is shared. God did not give you peace just for yourself. He gave it so you could carry it into environments that need it. Every room you walk into should feel your calm before you speak. The same Spirit that silenced the storm for the disciples lives in you. Your presence should be a reflection of His presence. When others lose control, your stillness should remind them that God is near. This is not achieved through force, but through abiding. The more you remain connected to Him, the more His peace flows through you naturally. Unshakable peace also redefines your relationship with time. Before, you may have rushed, feared delays, or tried to control outcomes. But when you live in divine peace, you understand that nothing is late in God's calendar. You stop fighting the process and start flowing with it. The anxiety that once consumed you begins to fade because you no longer measure peace by progress, but by presence. You no longer say, "I'll be at peace when this happens." You say, "I am at peace because He is here." That shift breaks every chain of impatience and worry. The unshakable believer knows that the same God who uprooted the wicked will also sustain the righteous. There is no fear of relapse, no dread that evil will return, because the soil has been sanctified. When the enemy tries to revisit, he finds no entry. Your peace becomes your armor. You begin to walk in the confidence of Psalm 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. The shadow represents covering, and under that covering, peace cannot be broken. One of the most striking truths about divine peace is that it doesn't always look peaceful from the outside. Sometimes you will be surrounded by storms while standing in serenity. Others may mistake your stillness for indifference, but you know it is surrender. You no longer waste energy fighting battles that God already won. You learn to differentiate between the noise that demands attention and the voice that deserves it. When your soul is anchored in truth, the world's chaos becomes background sound, present but powerless. Living beyond the reach of wicked roots also means releasing control over your image. Many people lose peace trying to prove they are right, trying to defend themselves against false accusations, or trying to justify their worth. But true peace requires letting go of vindication. When you know who you are in God, you no longer need to fight for validation. The truth will always outlast the lie. The same God who saw the root will expose it in time. Your responsibility is not to prove, but to persevere. The greatest test of peace often comes when God remains silent. After the uprooting, after the restoration, there are seasons where he says little. It is in this quiet that many grow restless. But silence is not absence. It is maturity. It means you have reached a point where you no longer need constant reassurance. You trust his character even without immediate confirmation. That is when peace reaches its highest form, when it no longer depends on answers but on assurance. In that silence, something holy happens. You begin to hear the rhythm of heaven. You notice that life slows down, that your heart breathes differently, that you no longer rush decisions. You start discerning when to speak and when to stay still, when to act and when to wait. This is the peace that surpasses understanding. It teaches you timing, and timing is everything. The wicked operate in haste, the righteous wait in wisdom. You will also notice that peace changes how you perceive others. Once, you might have reacted defensively to those who hurt you. Now you see through compassion. You recognize that those who wounded you were often acting from their own roots of pain. You no longer take offense personally because you understand the deeper truth. People cannot give what they do not have. When God gives you unshakable peace, you stop needing others to be peaceful for you to be at rest. You carry your own atmosphere. This peace is not static, it grows. Each new challenge becomes an opportunity to deepen it. Every time you face uncertainty and choose to trust, your roots go deeper. Every time you are wronged and choose forgiveness, your branches grow wider. Every time you are shaken but refuse fear, your fruit multiplies. Peace becomes your nature. You no longer reach for it, you live from it. It is also important to understand that unshakable peace doesn't mean numbness. It doesn't mean you stop feeling pain or sadness. It means that pain no longer rules you. You can cry and still be calm. You can grieve and still believe. You can face conflict without losing clarity. That is spiritual maturity, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it through divine trust. When peace governs your heart, even spiritual warfare changes. You stop fighting out of fear and start standing in authority. You understand that the enemy cannot touch what is hidden in Christ. You pray differently, not as a desperate plea for protection, but as a declaration of dominion. You remind the atmosphere that you belong to the unshakable kingdom, and that kingdom operates in peace. Peace becomes prophetic. It announces that you already believe in victory. When you stay calm in situations designed to provoke you, you are declaring that your future is secure. When you rest in storms, you are preaching louder than words ever could. The world watches, and they see not just resilience, but revelation. The revelation that God reigns even here, even now. Unshakable peace is also contagious. It flows from you into your family, your workplace, your friendships. Your words carry weight because they are not hurried. Your presence brings stability because it reflects eternity. People will begin to confide in you, drawn not by charisma, but by calm. You will find yourself becoming a shelter for the weary, a voice of hope for the anxious, a mirror of divine steadiness for the unstable. That is the natural outcome of living beyond the reach of wicked roots. Your peace becomes a ministry. Over time, you will realize that every moment of suffering that once seemed meaningless had a hidden purpose. The betrayal that broke you taught you discernment. The loss that emptied you made space for faith. The silence that tested you became the classroom where you learned endurance. Each experience was God removing what could not stay, so he could establish what could not be moved. And now, looking back, you see it clearly. Peace was never lost. It was being purified. The unshakable peace you now carry will not make life easier, but it will make you invincible. You will still face challenges, but you will no longer be defined by them. You will move through them like a ship through the sea. Waves may crash, but they will not sink you. The secret lies in what anchors you. As long as your anchor is in Christ, no storm can uproot you again. David's story ended not in fear, but in faith. The same man who once ran from Saul later ruled a kingdom. The same voice that once cried for deliverance later sang of confidence. That is what divine peace does. It takes fugitives and turns them into kings. It takes victims and turns them into victors. It takes chaos and turns it into calling. You too will stand in that transformation. There will be a day when you wake up and realize you are no longer watching for enemies, no longer waiting for storms, no longer reacting to shadows. You will feel stillness inside, not because life became perfect, but because you finally became planted. That peace will not leave you. It will accompany you through every season, every valley, every mountain, and it will testify silently wherever you go that God himself lives within you. So walk boldly now, live freely, guard your peace, but do not hide it. Let it flow, let it heal others. Let it remind you daily that no weapon formed against you can prosper because the roots of evil no longer touch your ground. You are established in righteousness and your peace is eternal. And remember this truth. When God uproots, it is forever. What he destroys cannot regrow. The soil of your life belongs to him now. Every attempt of the enemy to replant wickedness will fail because the presence of God occupies the ground. You are his garden. You are his dwelling place. You are the living fulfillment of Psalm 52, the testimony that every wicked root was destroyed and that peace has taken its place. Before closing, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Let these messages continue to strengthen your spirit and remind you that peace is your inheritance, not your pursuit. Stay close to the Word, stay rooted in his presence, and let every day become a reflection of the unshakable peace that God himself has planted within you.